Who speaks 3 languages? That's a lot of work. Yeah. Josh, he comes out and starts speaking Arabic in the last session. Speaking of Josh, let's give it up for Josh, our resident storyteller.
There we go.
I never quite know what we're going to get. So.
Neither do I. All right, who's heard of the chaos theory? Chaos theory is a realm of mathematics that looks at outputs and outcomes that are seemingly random and spontaneous, and it somehow finds a way to attach it to a set of original conditions. Simple term, butterfly effect, right? The rendition in 2004, Ashton Kutcher, that movie. Little butterfly flaps its wings in South Korea, and that change in air pressure somehow causes a buildup, and a tornado hits Florida, 3 months later. It shows that, in theory, everything is connected. Nothing is random. Every single thing is connected. It's a big tree. But when we look out into the world, it's difficult to see that. We see chaos, we see destruction, we see death, we see war. When we move into business, this 100Xs, it's very difficult to see the light at the end of the tunnel, especially when you get hit with stress and challenges. It's just ridiculous, And if you want to succeed, however, you have to have the mindset to be able to handle those stresses and see the grass on the other side is actually there, and we need to move forward with it. I think there's 2 ways to look at those challenges. Number 1 is, shit's happening to me, this sucks, so I'm just going to stop and give up. Or number 2 is, shit's happening to me, this sucks, but I do think this is going to bring me to further opportunity and greener pastures, so I'm just going to keep going. I today, ladies and gentlemen, am definitely a product of the chaos theory. To convey that point, I'm going to tell a story about my family history. Can I? Yes. I'm going to bring you back to 1964. A high school gym and physics teacher. He's got a family, he's got kids, he's got a career. He makes the unfortunate decision to have an affair with one of his students. She's way too young to mention. It's not a good spot. She gets pregnant, and in secrecy, they bring that baby. She births that baby and gives him up for adoption without a single soul knowing. Not his wife, not his kids, not her parents, nobody. This child is just thrust into the world. That child, 30 years later, she's a woman now, and no one knows about her existence in that family. She goes to an event in the UK. She goes from Canada to the UK, halfway across the world, in Devon, UK, if anyone knows the UK. At that event, she meets a bartender. She falls in love with that bartender. The 3rd time she sees him, the third time they meet, they decide to get married. And immediately she gets pregnant. And immediately after she gets pregnant, not several weeks after they get married, they get divorced. She's pregnant, she goes back to Canada, and she births the son. And that son eventually travels the world and starts a bunch of businesses and makes millions and millions of dollars. And fast forward, 55 years after she's born, 2019, her and her family discover the app 23andMe. It's this app where you spit in a tube, send your DNA off, and they give you analysis of your DNA. And also, family and relatives, they're also on the app. And so one day, she gets a notification on her phone. And for the first time ever, she finds out who her father is, 55 years after she was born. So the family does the research, and they find the story of what happened with the father, the high school teacher, and the student, and they find that 55 years later, still to that day, he has not told a single soul about her existence. Several years later, her son, the son that was born and halfway across the world from a marriage that lasted a few weeks, traveled around the world, also gets a notification on his phone. He also has a son. And that son lives in Australia, and he's 7 years old. And that son happens to have been born with very high-functioning, super genius Elon Musk type style autism. The type of kid that watches mathematics and probability YouTube videos for hours a day at 8, 9 years old, the type of kid that is bored of school because he just aces everything and he just wants to drop out and start a business. The type of kid that when he's older, he's gonna start an insane business and be a billionaire. That type of kid. Now that child that was born in 1964 was my mother. The kid who was born from the marriage that lasted a few weeks halfway across the world was me. And that son was my son that currently lives in Australia. He's a super genius. But chaos theory would tell us that that kid in Australia who in the future might build some insane businesses and products that will have an amazing positive impact on the world would never exist unless a high school teacher had an affair with a minor in 1964. But there's always two ways to look at this. Number one, crazy shit happens to me. The world is going around me, negative stuff, horrible situations. I'm just going to give up and die. Or number two, crazy shit's happening to me. This shit sucks, but I know there might be opportunities and doors that open for me in the future. I'm just going to keep going. I think what I'm going to take. So the question is, what option are you going to take when the challenges hit you in your business and your life? Thank you.
Never disappoints, right? How long do you reckon he can keep it up for? That's my question. We'll keep inviting him back until, well, I don't know where the stories will ever run out. Has it been turned into a movie yet?
Not yet.
Could be a movie, I think. It's that kind of story, isn't it? Chaos theory. Love it. Thank you so much. Let's give it up for Josh one more time. So,